Good. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Metro Inner Development Assessment Panel. I declare the meeting open at 9:34 a.m. and acknowledge we're hosting this meeting in the traditional land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters, and community. This meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders 2024 under the DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website in accordance with Regulation 42A of the DAP regulations. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our members that will be participating today. My name is Dale Page. I'm the presiding member today. In the room with me to my left, I have Francesca Lefanti, Deputy Presiding Member, and Tony Arias, Specialist Member. With us online for Part B, the City of Stirling, we have Councillor Michael Dudek and Councillor Suzanne Mcdale. Welcome to you both. We do not have any councillors with us today for the City of South Perth items. Item 2, apologies. We have an apology from Luigi D'Alessandro and an apology from Councillor Bronwyn War for the City of South Perth. Item 3, noting of minutes. Minutes of all previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Moving on to Part B, City of Stirling. Item 1 is declaration of due consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation contained within Part B of the agenda and the Part B related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that members have considered all information? Thank you. Item 2, disclosures of interest. Could I check with our local government DAP members whether this application has been before you at a briefing or a meeting? No? Excellent, thank you. No other disclosures of interest have been received to this point. Do any members wish to make any declarations of interest in relation to this item? No. No. Excellent, thank you. Moving then on to item 3, Form 1, DAP applications. Item 3.1, Lot 90 and 89, house numbers 38 and 59, Genève Street and Hertha Road, Inaloo, 22 multiple dwellings. DAP number 25/02936. We have two presenters on this item today, Andrew Baranowski from Plan E in support of the application and Sean Vanderpool from RAD Architecture in support of the application. We also have Esther Sue from RAD Architecture and CC Tang from Plan E to answer questions from the panel if required. We have also received a written submission from Peter Myall and have all had the opportunity to read and digest that submission ahead of this meeting. Presenters, I remind you that in accordance with our standing orders, your presentation is limited to 3 minutes. And no extension of time has been granted to the presenters. We've read all the written documentation you've provided, so I encourage you to stick to the key points that you want to get across in those 3 minutes. I will call you to time when you receive your 3 minutes, and then panel members will be invited to ask questions after your presentation. Did you want to come forward for your presentations? Andrew, are we starting with you?
No, starting with Sean.
When your time starts, when you are ready.
Thank you. Do I have the presentation on this?
Pull it up for you now. I won't start until you.
Thank you. Sean, do you have it?
Laptops.
No, that's okay. I've put one here as well, but I'm sure it'd be difficult to plug in. I've got a USB as well.
Yeah, laptops
Yeah,
don't like
the laptop.
things, yeah.
No problem.
Government.
All good.
everyone have a good break.
Right?
Everyone have a good break. Yes. Another year begins, as they say. If I give the head over there.
There is a presentation that went with this one. Yeah, cool. Oh, perfect. Are you able to full screen it so then I can use the clicker to move? Right?
Also click on work. Try.
Is that me doing that?
Yeah, that's you.
Would you mind full screening it? Is that possible? Try that.
Thank you very much.
Good to go. Thank you. Should I get started? Good morning all. My name is Sean Vanderpoel, Director at Rad Architecture. We're the architects behind the proposal. I'll be covering architecture, cover the landscape, you'll follow. So the proposal
Looking over on this screen.
Just a little bit slow, I think.
the proposal is situated across an amalgamated site in Innaloo and sits within the Innaloo Precinct Development Plan with dual street frontages to Jenner Street and Perth Road. Is it on your screen?
It's flipped. Put it over on this one.
Sort of talk to it without seeing it, I guess.
There we go.
Okay, responding to the zoning across the site, the proposal was divided into two forms of 3 and 4 stories respectively. The street-facing facades are divided into a 1/3, 2/3 ratio, with the smaller portion set back to create an asymmetrical and aesthetically balanced interface with the streetscape. Flowing curbs are also applied to the northeast and northwest corners of each facade, complementing and strengthening the overarching asymmetrical composition. The design aligns with the objectives of the former detailed area plan with compliant building separation and privacy to adjoining neighbouring properties, as shown on this diagram. Overshadowing as well within our code volume 2 requirements for both of the adjoining sites to the south. And the development also has no south-facing apartments, with 100% of dwellings being in a dual aspect configuration. This dual aspect arrangement also ensures 100% of apartments are naturally cross-ventilated within the project. The design includes a secure resident bike store to encourage sustainable modes of transport, as well as a 10 kilowatt solar array on the roof. The design is also underpinned by passive design principles, including screening to balconies, shading to vehicle parking areas, and generous landscape provisions across the site. The development includes productive gardens and outdoor resident spaces to foster a sense of community, while open plan internal layouts take full advantage of the dual aspect floor plan arrangement, spilling out into functional and protected balcony spaces. Street-facing lobbies provide clear, intuitive entry points to the development, and clear sight lines across the proposal follow stepped-head design principles. Let's get into the end. A public art strategy has been developed in tandem with the design, and indicative public art locations have been earmarked on the DA drawings. At a macro level, proposals of this scale serve a critical role in providing much needed new housing stock into the Perth housing market in locations which are close to public transport nodes and appropriately zoned for increased density. A minimal refined palette of materials has been used within the design, which comes together to form a cohesive design language sitting in harmony with the flowing building forms and generous landscaping across the site. Following a genuine engagement process with the City of Stirling, the proposal has now received a formal recommendation for approval from the City, and we would like to thank the City officers and DRP members for their collaboration throughout this process. Thank you for your time. I'll now hand over to Andrew to cover off the landscape aspects of the proposal, and we're here for any questions.
Thanks, Sean.
No worries.
Well done under duress.
Thank you. Don't know if you need a presentation.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Hopefully there's a landscape one there somewhere.
There is. I think there.
I'm sure we'll have time as well. Sorry.
That's fine. I was pausing and
You're working as hard as
Great, thank you. That's the presentation. Yeah, thank you, Sean. That was great, and thank you for the opportunity to present today, members. Greatly appreciated. I guess our role in the project is very much about creating a setting for this really lovely building, and I guess trying to create a sense of community. It's a residential development, so our role is to utilise external spaces to create a really strong sense of community, both in terms of how the building is accessed, as well as the courtyards that have been created for the community resident use. Part of this is using high quality materials and furniture elements, and the concept basically considers a combination of WA endemic planting, both in terms of trees and shrubs, as well as deciduous exotics where we need summer shade, winter sun. So that's the basis for the development. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Go back. So the image board that you see in the presentation basically shows a combination of the elements that we're proposing: raised herb and tree planters within the community courtyard areas, as well as passive seating spaces. In terms of the concept for the site, again, the focus has been very much about providing shade trees and amenity for the residents. And because of the wide nature of Hertha Road, the idea of ground covers and tree planting in the verge has been provided. Shade trees to car parking areas within deep soil areas, which is an important factor. We've created a 3 metre by 3 metre by 1 metre deep area for trees to grow within parking areas. And then obviously the two community courtyards, one which is a passive that provides lovely seating opportunities, shade trees, seating areas, and a community garden essentially with some herbs and fruit trees as well. We are retaining significant trees on Hertha Road as well. Basically, the intention then is to use a combination of trees throughout. From a DSA point of view, we've The requirement is 146 square metres of deep soil. We've actually provided 182 on ground, which is significant for this type of development. We only require to provide one large tree as part of SPP 7.3. We've allowed for 240, what we call compliant, which means in terms of widths and areas available for those trees, that's been provided. And then we've got another 428 square metres of actually non-compliant tree canopy. So overall, I think a really good effect for the project.
You are at time, Andrew, so I'll ask you to wrap up.
Yep. So look, just the planting pallets, which you've seen, both trees and shrubs, and then all the DSA and tree canopy calculations. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Right, I will hand to our members that are online first to see if there are any questions of the presenters. Councillor Dudek, any questions?
Not to the presenters at this stage. I do have some questions for some of our City of Stirling officers, but if I get an opportunity for that later, that's fine.
Sure, absolutely will. Thanks. Councillor Migdale, any questions of these presenters?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Members in the room, questions? Member Lafanti.
Thank you. I have two questions. My first question is, you would have seen the written submission that's been provided today referencing the adjoining property and the plant species. Do you have any comments you wish to make? And I have obviously got and seen your plan that you have provided to us and presented today, particularly in relation to privacy aspects.
I guess the intention with the tree planting, particularly on the southern boundary, is to obviously maximise the amount of trees along that boundary to create that strong interface, that's privacy interface. So the trees we're proposing are tuckaroos, again, which will get to probably 7, 8, 9 metres in time. They're an upright columnar tree because we're planting them quite close together. So we believe in time that kind of basically that privacy will be maintained. I guess we're also cognizant of shading of using trees to shade as well. So I think the focus from our point of view is making sure that hard surfaces on our site are shaded without trying to too much impact on the adjoining residents.
Thank you. My second question relates also to landscape. The landscaping plan is very innovative, has lots of various species, particularly in the common area relating to fruit trees and herbs. I'm interested in the maintenance program and obligations, obviously a very interactive concept we have in front of us for residents. Can you speak through that?
Certainly. Look, with any strata development like this, there'll be a detailed management plan that's prepared as part of the exercise. So the strata company will basically be enforced to actually hire a landscape contractor to manage and maintain all the external landscapes, including the verges to Hertha and as well.
Thank you.
Can I also just mention that one, if that's okay? But there is no internal resident amenity, which often takes up a lot of the strata burden maintenance-wise. So we don't have communal living areas, cinema, all that. Yeah. So I think we've tried to go pretty hard, as you've picked up on the landscape, but I wouldn't say there's more of a strata burden than normal because we don't have those other internal spaces, which often take a lot of heavy lifting, cleaning, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you. In your presentation, you made reference to adjoining neighbours and privacy. As has been outlined, one of the adjoining owners concerned about privacy. Just looking at page 11, which shows the shading, doesn't actually refer to, I think it's 57B. Do you know where 57B is?
Just as a context, I haven't seen this this deputation and so I must have missed it. I'm sorry. but
Okay.
one from the neighbour, just so in case I sounded.
Just hopefully summarise it for you. So,
The neighbour to the north.
yeah, neighbours to the north. So their concern is that a number of the apartments on the northern elevation will overlook. So there will be a loss of privacy.
So I can speak to generally what we've done. Yeah.
So what they've suggested is additional planting, which perhaps Andrew can respond to. But I was sort of interested in your comment about your design and how you've dealt with the issue of privacy.
No, of course, and it's
particularly northern elevation, which is
so the southern to the south we have a drainage lot, and that's sort of quite a big distance anyway. So to the north we've actually got highlight windows. So that's the living areas that face north already have high level windows, so above 1600 sills. So that's how we've dealt with, say, active living spaces, which would overlook them if they were lower windows, but they're not. The balcony has screening to the north, so it sort of faces, they face either east or west for all those apartments. There's no balcony to look out to the north. And then we also have Andrew's array of trees that sit in triangles with structural soils all along the northern boundary. And I'd also just add that we have, so there are windows for bedrooms that view north. So the living rooms have higher sills. The bedrooms have full windows as we want to let light and amenity in, but they're actually set back from the boundary further, and they all comply with the structure plan in the setbacks around privacy. So there's always going to be concerns, I get that, but we've worked really hard to both comply with the structure plan as it was, and also to layer and be sort of quite, I guess, take a really active approach in trying to mitigate any of those concerns. And I guess that's as much as we can do as, you know, from our side, I hope.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Presiding member, maybe Andrew, can you respond to the issue of
I guess
your scope for additional planting on that northern elevation?
essentially, I think there is, because essentially that's parking along there. So at the moment we've got trees every four bays. That could be increased potentially. I guess the way I've worked with Sean, he's designed actually, you know, recesses in the built form to accommodate those trees as well, to achieve, you know, the maximum height and width. So look, I think you know, we think we've got enough along there to achieve a really good sense of privacy and amenity. But you know, there's certainly an option to put in another one or two.
Well, I think, yeah, there are trees already at every 7.5 metres, every three bays.
3 bays, sorry. Yeah.
And in the centre, we've actually got even more. They're every 2 bays. And that's actually probably where the complaint is around, is they've got a pool in their backyard. And I expect that's a focal point of their issue.
Yeah.
Next to the pool, we've got trees every 2 car bays. So effectively every 5 metres. That's 5 metres between the centre of each tree.
Yeah.
And so I'm not really sure, from a design perspective, adding more trees is doing anything, because we're already expecting those trees to fill out with the radius of a canopy.
So can I just clarify for me, you're suggesting that the current arrangement of your trees along that boundary over time will create a wall essentially of landscaping?
Pretty close, yeah, because again, the Cupaniopsis will get, tuckeroos will get to, as I said, 7 or 8 metres by probably 6 metres in width. So, you know, even at 7.5 metre spacing, they will touch eventually. So there will be essentially a hedge, a tree hedge along there in time. The intention is those trees will go in at a reasonable size from day one. So they'll be probably 4 or 5 metres, 500 litre, 4 or 5 metres in height already. So probably within 5 years, I would estimate they would be pretty much touching, and that's why we've specifically wanted to include the deep soil, the structural soils in there to maximise that growth potential.
Could I have one further question, please? And I understand that the planting design incorporates a concentration of planting distance, or those trees, in the centre of the site, which, as you referred to, which is effectively abutting where the pool area is related. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Created narrower separation distance between the.
So they're 5 metres apart, every two parking bays. So there's 3 specifically located within where the adjoining swimming pool is.
Thank you, that was my only question.
All right, thank you for that. Moving on then to invite questions of the local government officers. We have Sean Wheatland with us today from the City of Stirling, and he is accompanied by other members of the team. Sean, would you like to make any comments following the deputations that have been made and the questions that have been asked, or are you happy to go straight to questions? We can't hear you.
Sorry, through the chair, I'll just give a quick overview of the city's assessment, and then happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the proposed 22 multiple dwellings on lot 90, 38 Jeanette Street and 89 Hertha Road. The city thanks the applicant for working collaboratively through the application with a changing framework. Historically, the site has previous applications with determinations for 28 multiple dwellings and 32 multiple dwellings in the past. The proposal has been assessed against the relevant planning instruments, including local planning scheme number 3. The development site is zoned development under LPS 3, and the responsible authority report has considered the objectives of the Stirling City Centre Special Control Area when assessing the proposal. Whilst LPS 3 provides guidance in respect to zones and zoning objectives, prior to the 19th of October 2025, the specific development standards applicable to the proposal were contained within the local development plan. While the city acknowledges that the local development plan is expired and is no longer applicable to the site, the city has still undertaken an assessment of the proposal against the provisions and the objectives contained within the attachment for the purposes of orderly and proper planning. Noting that the document has, since its adoption, guided the development of the locality, and the city's views provides reference to the existing built form and character of the area. Furthermore, in order to maintain proper and orderly planning, the city has prepared draft LPS 4 to replace LPS 3. Draft LPS 4 has been advertised under the regulations and was submitted to the DPLH for final assessment and determination on the 10th of June 2025. It is a representation of the city's intended future development context. As such, to address the likely future development context, the site under draft LPS 4 and assessment has been contained within the attachment. The development site will be zoned residential R60 for lot 90 and R80 for lot 89 under the draft LPS 4, and therefore volume 1 and volume 2 of the R codes have been given consideration within the city's assessment. Overall, the development has been considered to satisfy the primary built form controls, which is assisted with the drainage reserve to the south and transition of built form from buildings from 3 to 4 stories contained within the city's planning framework and develops on the intended outcomes of the area. The development provides an essential service for residentials within the local and wider area. The location of the proposed 22 multiple dwelling is consistent with the city's planning framework, and the development has been appropriately designed to mitigate any adverse impacts to the surrounding area. I note that the deputation was actually to lot 57 in relation to the visual privacy, which is not the property with the pool, it's the property on the eastern side. The city's assessment concludes that whilst under the LDP, visual privacy is contained within the building setback of the building, is considered appropriate. Under volume 2 of the R codes and the applicable planning framework, the existing development site to the north does have a common property access driveway, and that any code vision would potentially fall over that, but also the inclusion of planting and highlight windows considers that it's appropriate within its context. Happy to answer any further questions that you may have.
Thank you, Sean. I think we do have some questions for you. Councillor Dudek, you had some questions for the local government officers. Over to you.
Yes, thank you. I am a tiny bit concerned about the current character of the area and how this fits in, but I think the main one I wanted to ask about was in the RAR on page 11 of the agenda I'm looking at, the City of Stirling in the public consultation, talks about some complaints regarding access to sunlight and ventilation for adjacent properties. The city's response was that an assessment against the overshadowing concludes that the resultant overshadowing does not have an adverse effect to adjoining properties or the public realm, I assume it's meant to say. Just looking at the bird's eye view photos of the adjacent properties, there's quite a lot of solar panels on their roofs. I'm just wondering, does the overshadowing not have any adverse effect, or is it not a significant adverse effect? And perhaps could we speak to that?
Yeah, so the assessment would consider that it has no additional adverse effect. So the actual location is considered to allow for 3 to 5 story buildings within this area under both the old expired local development plan, but also the residential R60 and R80 zoning, which would be under LPS 4. So the city takes an assessment under essentially what a permitted building height would overshadow. The site is assisted with the drainage reserve to the south, which results in no additional adverse impact to as what would be considered under a compliant building framework.
Sorry, I don't quite understand what that means, so forgive my ignorance. The way I see it, it's a high building. There will be some overshadowing that will likely cover solar panels at certain parts of the day. But you're saying there's no adverse impact, or?
So no additional to what a compliant building design would have. So the city takes an assessment under what if a compliant 3-story under the acceptable outcomes of the R codes would overshadow, and the city then takes an assessment against what this proposal is seeking, and the proposal and the city's assessment identifies that there's no additional to what a fully compliant building envelope would overshadow.
Understood. Is that the current R codes or the R codes under the draft LPS 4?
So that assessment has been undertaken against both the local development plan, which has expired, but also under the future planning framework, which is envisioned under draft local planning scheme number 4.
Interesting. Okay.
Any further questions, councillor? No. Councillor Migdale, any questions for the officers?
No, thank you.
No. Members in the room. Member Lafanti.
Have a question on, essentially it's the same question on 3 conditions. Those conditions are 4, 5 and 14. Those conditions are referring about the specific nature of the conditions, and I'll go first to condition 4. It talks about that the condition being implemented and maintained, or maintained to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling. The question is, if there are some minor changes to that condition, I don't see any opportunity for the city to consider minor variations. And so my suggestion or query is there a particular reason for that, or do you object to inclusion of language or words of unless otherwise approved, and continuing on, thereafter maintained by the City of Stirling? So that's condition 4. Condition 5 and condition 14 have similar language I'm suggesting might to be included, which would be unless otherwise approved to the satisfaction of the city. And my question goes to, in the absence of that sort of language, any variation from the documents we have, no matter how minor, would potentially require reconsideration by this panel rather than discussion between city and applicant. Do you have any comments or questions in relation to that? Or comments, I should say.
So the city would have no objections to what's put forward. So the rationale behind the city's wording to the satisfaction of the city does allow the flexibility to, I guess, consider those minor changes where it doesn't propose any greater variations. But it does allow the city, and the city has historically undertaken minor deviations where no further variation is proposed under its standard process.
So that is, are you referring to both 4, 5 and 14? Condition 14?
So the city, sorry, I was referring to conditions 4 and 5. Condition 14 relating to the acoustic measures,
Yes.
as that's, I guess, identified within an acoustic report, the city would see that the outcomes of that would have to be maintained. If there was any, I guess, update to the acoustic report, then the city would review it and deem it appropriate if there are any further recommendations. But if you did seek to put, I guess, those alternate wordings in, the city would have no objections to it.
So the language that, sorry if I may continue, the language that I was referring to in condition 14 would be at the end of your condition, comma, unless otherwise approved to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling, which still requires an obligation for an acoustic report, but in the event that there are some minor changes as a result of refinement of design through the future stages, it would be an opportunity for discussion. It wouldn't create an obligation that you must accept or support, but it would give an opportunity to enable those conversations.
Yeah, the city would have no objection to those alterations.
Thank you. They're my only question.
Thank you, Presiding Member. My question relates to, in part, to the draft new town planning scheme and what it proposes for this locality. I presume the land surrounding this site has a similar density coding of R60 and R80?
Yeah, so under the city's draft local planning scheme number 4, the city undertook an assessment of its existing zonings, including local development plans and other applicable planning frameworks. As part of draft LPS 4, it was intended that the existing context would be zoned and coded appropriately. So where a building that is consistent with R80 and R60, as seen within these 2 development sites, would receive the same zoning. So that's why the city has identified the R60 and R80 zoning.
Okay, thank you. So it would seem that quite a bit of that area is able to be redeveloped in the future. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, that would be a fair assumption under the proposed zoning.
Yeah. So my question is about the TIA, and it would seem I'm satisfied with the outcome of the TIA in relation to this proposal, but is the city embarking on any sort of broader traffic analysis, given that the area is likely to be redeveloped in the future?
Through the chair, I might be able to answer that one. When the city was undertaking the strategic planning of the locality some years ago, there was a broader transport analysis done for the larger area, which effectively imagined trying to enable mode shift due to the close proximity of public transport. So broadly, the city has done large wholesale traffic modelling, and this development effectively is consistent with what the city's strategic traffic modelling has imagined for the area.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a few questions about conditions, and I'm going to take you initially back to condition 4. So condition 4 requires approval, requires the approved landscape plan to be implemented prior to occupation. But points A and B actually require some deviation from that approved landscape plan. So what would the vetting or approval process be for those changes required by A and B? How will you check that A and B have actually been done? Because it's prior to occupation, it's not prior to building permit. You're not asking for the landscape plan to be updated. So what are the vetting approval process for those changes you're asking?
Through the chair, prior to any residents occupying the building, the city undertakes an occupancy inspection, and we have a dedicated project officer, Trees, that also checks for compliance with any relevant approvals where specific tree planting is required. So there is a proactive point in time on going to the property and ensuring that they've met their requirements.
Okay, so for instance, point A says the proposed medium trees must be of a species that achieves a height of maturity at 8 to 12 metres. When that person goes on site and has a look at the tree that's been planted, will they have the ability to make a determination about whether that particular species is the right one?
Through the chair, yes, essentially yes. If they can't determine it precisely there on site, we document it and we refer to our landscape architects.
Okay, thank you for that. Condition 9 relates to disability access. When I read that condition, it appears to me that that's a matter that's required to be addressed anyway at building permit stage. So shouldn't that rather be an advice note instead of a condition?
Yeah, through the chair, we've got no objection to that becoming an advice note that will be considered by the assessing building surveyor.
Thank you. And then condition 12. So I'm curious as to why you've conditioned the requirement for provision of bicycle bays when they're already shown on the development plans. And condition 2 requires the development to be in accordance with those plans. So and I'm also asking, aren't those bays required to be in accordance with the relevant Australian standards anyway in terms of dimensions and so on? So why have you conditioned something that's already included on the plans?
Through the chair, the city commonly does this. Often we include a reference to the Australian standard to make sure that the bicycle parking that is actually sourced will actually meet the Australian standard. There have been circumstances in the past where the provided bicycle parking hasn't met the Australian standard. So that, as part and parcel, is generally why the city has taken this approach.
Okay. Then condition 21 references storage yards.
I've lost audio.
Areas. Areas.
Through the chair, I believe that actually should be a reference to storage areas rather than storage yards. Through the chair, I'm just confirming if the DAP Secretariat dropped out for a moment and if you can hear us.
Now I can.
Thank you. Through the chair, DAP Secretary, are you able to hear the City of Stirling officers?
No.
No.
Can everyone hear us okay this way?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear.
Can you hear us now?
Oh, very bad. Echo.
Is it working now?
Yeah,
Apologies, sorry.
that's okay.
Well done,
Yeah. All right. Apologies for that. We seem to be having some Zoom issues today, and more broadly than just this meeting. I'm going to just start that question again. So condition 21 references storage yards. There's a reference to storage yards, and I'm curious, what areas does that wording relate to? Should this rather reference storerooms or designated storage areas? But the use of storage yards is curious to me.
Through the chair, yes, it could be more appropriately expressed as storage areas or storage rooms.
Okay. And then the last question that I have relates to condition 28, requires the installation of public art prior to occupation, and it just deals with installation of public art. Is there a cash in lieu option? Have you discussed exactly what the art will be? Why does that condition just reference installation of art?
Through the chair, so the city's local planning policy doesn't allow for cash in lieu. So condition 27 essentially requires the applicant to provide a location and a typology to ensure that the applicant has thought about public art. Condition 28 will take place once the public art proposal has gone to the city's public art panel and it's agreed upon. And condition 28 allows for the city to ensure that it has been installed as approved by the public art panel.
Thank you. Okay, I have no further questions. Unless there are any further last minute questions for the city staff, we're going to move to the report. We have a report in front of us that recommends approval of the proposal subject to a number of conditions. I would like to seek a mover and seconder. Anyone wish to move the recommendation in the report? Councillor Migdale. Anyone wish to second? Banty, thank you. Councillor Migdale, you have the floor.
Thanks, Chair. I really don't have much to add. I think that this has been robustly discussed. It's very clear that it's a great looking development, practical, and meets the requirements for that we would request and expect in terms of mature trees, and certainly will be, paramount to our our residents in Stirling by providing a really good example of infill development that is sympathetic to the streetscape and is definitely required in our neck of the woods. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Lafanti, a seconder, do you wish to speak?
Thank you. I am supportive of the proposal, including the as it's relevant and consistent with the relevant planning schemes. It also supports high density land use, which is permitted both in form and scale within the Stirling city centre area. I have duly considered the concerns and comments raised against this proposal, and I'm satisfied that issues such as overlooking have been appropriately addressed through the design, incorporating highlight windows and screening, as well as overshadowing, parking and traffic have also been duly considered. I note that whilst the proposal is definitely different from the low-rise buildings in the area, as I've already indicated, the planning framework supports and encourages more higher and intensive buildings. And given that this site is locationally, the locational context includes good access to commercial, retail, entertainment, all those other types of things, public transport, it is both an appropriate form and scale of the area. At this juncture, I'd like to move
Certainly.
my amendments. There are 3 of them, and I'm happy to take them all together, but I can do them separately if it's easier for a minute taker.
Can I just check that's the addition of the same wording to the 3 conditions?
Yes.
I'm happy to deal with that en bloc.
Yes. So for the minute taker, Amendment 1 includes after the dated 7th of November 2025, unless otherwise approved, and the remainder of that condition. Condition 2, after the words as per figure 2 in this report, comma, unless otherwise approved to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling.
Can I just check, you're talking condition 1 and 2, are we talking conditions 4 and 5?
Sorry, I'm reading it. Sorry, condition 4 and condition 5.
Sure.
And condition
A and B.
And condition. No, I'm just talking about the in condition 4. I'm talking about the preamble, the beginning of that condition. I'm not making any changes to A and B. Condition 5, I'm only adding those additional words to it. Condition 14 at the very end of it, which says it's part of this approval, unless otherwise approved to the satisfaction of the City of Stirling. And those are my amendments to those 3 conditions.
Thank you, Member Lafanti. Do I have a seconder for those amendments? Member Arias, do you wish to speak further?
My reasoning for these amendments is that the amended wording doesn't alter the intent of the condition, rather it provides an avenue for variations to those particular elements to be considered and alternative outcomes considered and supported by the City. Thank you.
Just briefly, I think the changes suggested provide flexibility for the City to undertake minor changes.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak for or against that amendment? No? Close that on that amendment?
I have nothing further.
Further? All right, let's vote on that amendment. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Back to you.
I have no further comments. I've made them.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak to the substantive motion? Councillor Dudek, do you wish to speak? Member Arias.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I will be supporting the motion to approve. As has been outlined, I believe the proposal is consistent with the planning framework and particularly the current planning scheme, but also the draft planning scheme, which is well advanced and to be considered as a seriously entertained planning document, and therefore in considering this application, it's appropriate for the panel to have due regard to the proposed scheme. In terms of the context of the site, being very close to the Stirling train station, and not far from the Westfield activity centre, I think it's an appropriate location to have this type of development and particularly multiple dwellings. The RAR indicates that the city's officers have addressed SBP 7 in terms of design of the built form, and they're satisfied it complies. And I agree with the comment made by Councillor Migdale that it's a good looking building, and I think it responds well to the local context. And noting also that the DRP supported the development. Just finally, I know there has been some issues raised through submissions about traffic impact, and there will be an additional impact on traffic, and that's inevitable. But I think that also recognises a planning framework, and the city's officers have indicated they're satisfied that the road system accommodates the additional traffic. On that basis, happy to support approval.
Member Arias. I too am happy to support, but before speaking to the substantive motion, I'd like to move a couple of amendments. My first amendment that I'm proposing is to delete condition 9, which relates to disability access, and to instead include it as an advice note. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you, Member Arias. The reason for that is the requirement for appropriate disability access is covered by the National Construction Code under the Building Codes of Australia. Adherence to relevant requirements and standards is covered by separate legislation. It's assessed at building permit stage. So there is no need for inclusion of this requirement as a planning condition. It's more appropriate as an advice note so that the applicant understands there will be an obligation at building permit stage. Anything you wish to add?
No, thank you.
Does any member wish to speak for or against this amendment?
No.
No? All right, let's put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. My second amendment is to amend condition 21 to change the words storage yards to designated storage areas. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Thank you. Member Lafanti. The reason being there are no storage yards with this development, so the current wording is therefore confusing. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No.
No? Does any member wish to speak for or against that amendment? No, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I'm very happy to support this application for much needed high quality residential accommodation in such a great location, close to a train station and a strategic activity centre. I note the objections received during public consultation on the application and the issues that were raised in them, but I'm of the view these have been responded to appropriately in the city's responsible authority report. Notwithstanding that the local development plan for the site has expired and volume 2 of the R codes therefore doesn't technically apply to the development, the proposal has still been assessed against these documents and shown to comply with the objectives and the relevant provisions of both. The proposal has also been assessed against local planning scheme 3, as well as draft local planning scheme 4, which has moved a fair way through the development and approvals process and sets a clear vision and an agreed vision for the site. The proposed build form is entirely appropriate for the site, given the vision for the area is for medium to high-rise development. At only 3 and 4 stories, the proposal fits comfortably within the controls that are usually aligned with R60 and R80 residential density coding. From what we've seen in the report and what we've heard through questions today, I think overlooking of adjoining properties has been minimised through careful design, including setbacks, screening devices, recessing of viewing positions, and significant landscaping to limit overlooking into sensitive areas of adjoining properties. I don't believe, picking up on the city's comments that there's no additional impact in terms of amenity, in terms of overshadowing. There is going to be some overshadowing given the nature of the development controls afforded to this site under the strategic framework. But I think the proposal has been thoughtful in this regard not to generate any additional overshadowing. The landscaping on the site will also be significantly enhanced and will not diminish it in any way. The increased traffic movements resulting from the development will have negligible impact on the surrounding road network, particularly given the work that's already been done in terms of traffic analysis to determine whether or not the strategic framework that has been put in place can actually be accommodated in real terms. There is no safety issue associated with access and egress. There's a parking surplus proposed, so there really should be no concerns about parking provision. I also note the city's assessment against the 10 design principles of State Planning Policy 7, and that the applicant did make meaningful changes in response to the feedback received from the city's design review panel early on. So all in all, very happy to support. With that, I am proposed to hand back to the mover to close debate item. Councillor Midale is in.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for covering off this application to the panel as well with clarity and purpose. I think that all questions have been answered and all doubts assuaged. I think this will be an excellent development, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, let us put the substantive motion as amended to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. That is carried 4-1. Moving on to item 4, Form 2 DAP applications for Stirling. There are none today. Item 5, Section 31 SAT reconsiderations for Stirling. There are also none today. With that, I thank Councillor Michael Dudak and Councillor Suzanne Midale for your attendance and patience. See you next time.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, lovely to see you, even if it is virtually. Hello, Tony. It's been a long while. Francesca, hope you had a wonderful Christmas. All the best to you. See you soon. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bill.
All right, let's move on to Part C of South Perth. We don't have elected members with us today, so it is the 3 members in the room that will be dealing with the application. Item 1, declaration of consideration. Panel members need to have considered all the documentation within Part C of the agenda and Part C related information. Could I please confirm by a show of hands that members have considered all information? Thank you. Disclosures of interest. No disclosures have been received at this point. Do any members wish to make any declarations of interest? No. All right, moving on to item 3, Form 1 DAP applications. Item 3.1, lot number 6, 29 Baldwin Street, Como, 3 group dwellings, DAP number 25/02966. We have one presenter on this item today, Peter Merger from Urbanista. Peter, we've got you online, is that correct?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Just to remind you, in accordance with our standing orders, your presentation is limited to 3 minutes. I will call you to time when you get to your 3 minutes, and then the panel will be able to ask any questions they have of you. Your time starts when you are ready.
Okay. Good morning, presiding member and panelists. And I'm hoping that the application will be relatively straightforward and quick this morning. It's the application in front of us is for a two-story, three-group dwelling proposal, which is on 2 stories at 29 Baldwin Street, Macomb. It has undergone a rigorous assessment process by the city, including 2 referrals to the city's design and review panel. The submission of additional information and amendments to design in response to the city's assessment and DRP comments were positively received, and the application is being presented to the MIDAP with the recommendation of approval. The applicant welcomes the city's recommendation and is mostly satisfied with the conditions of approval imposed on the development. There was one condition that was imposed on this development, which is condition 4, Roman numeral 2, regarding the crossover, which we initially sought some clarification on, which is that an amended crossover design is requested to remove the proposed curve section of that crossover and align the crossover to be perpendicular to the street. In the city's report, it refers to potentially requiring the light pole to be shifted to be able to accommodate the crossover. Upon, I guess, further review, we probably feel that we can deal with this through the submission of documentation prior to the building permit. We believe that the crossover can be constructed to standards without moving the light pole. Some clarification perhaps we'd seek some clarification from the city on that, but we believe that we can achieve that. I won't spend too long on this, but just to say we'd like to thank the city for working with us and also the DRP. We think that we've achieved a positive outcome with this design, one that is consistent with the established character of the area, of which there are many group dwellings. We believe that the development responds appropriately to both the site levels and also the landscaping, which is prevalent in this area. We respectfully ask for the DAP to support the officer recommendation. If there are any questions, I'm more than happy to take them on this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Members in the room, any questions of Peter? Member Lafanti? No. Can I just, I've got one, Peter. I note that you oppose the provision of public art. Could I ask why, and if you are compelled to adhere to the policy, what sort of art would you have in mind, or would you offer cash in lieu?
That's a good question. In terms of, I guess, the public art, why we objected to it, I guess it's the nature of the development. It is only a small development, so I guess the public art contribution with respect to the development, whether it would be altogether very meaningful or not, I'm not too sure. I don't think you would. I think public art is probably better suited to larger, more large developments in general. I think a three-unit group dwelling is probably not the place for public art, but in terms of that condition, if it is imposed and if it is required, we'll accept that. But in terms of public art that we had in mind, we probably haven't thought that far along, and we'd be happy to take some guidance from the city in terms of its installation and professionals in that field. But with respect to when it comes to satisfying that condition, but that was initially our thought. That sort of fits probably, in my view, and certainly in the view of the officer that was assessing this, the urbanista, we just felt that it was it's probably more appropriate for larger developments as opposed to sort of 3-unit developments. But we do meet that threshold. So if that condition needs to be imposed, we'll accept that.
Okay, thank you for that. We will now move on to invite questions of our local government officers. We've got Courtney Wynn and Fiona Mullen with us today from the City of South Perth. Do you want to make any comments on the deputation that was made, or are you happy to go straight to questions?
Thank you, through the chair. I think the RER submitted by the city addresses the presentation that was made today, so we're happy to take questions. Thank you.
Okay. Questions for the local government officers, Member Lafanti.
My question is in relation to condition 11. My question is, provide some further information on it. The question talks about the use of where the public art is designed. And I'm interested in this particular site, the application of public art. And I have downloaded the documentation. It shows that this site is on the very edge of the plan area, directly opposite residential. I'm interested in the application of public art on this site. So it's not just about the type of development, it's both the location and the interface of this development with residential and the policy position about location of where public art would be spent. Could you explain further or provide additional commentary about rationale of public art on this site in this location of this scale?
Thank you, through the chair. I think, as just mentioned, within the RAR, we do talk about a consistent approach to.
Up a little bit. Thanks.
Sorry. We do talk about the rationale of being consistent in applying the policy across the planning centre area, irrespective of whether the developers choose to develop to a lower yield than can be achieved through this area. Obviously, this is within an area where a substantially greater yield can be achieved, but the applicant here has decided not to progress with that. The city can obviously consider group dwellings. We are supportive of the application type, but we do still feel that there is the requirement to make the contribution. The contribution in accordance with the policy can be made either through a monetary contribution or a contribution on site. Developments of this nature, what we've seen in terms of provision on site, we've seen gates, we've seen entry statements, public art around just the address and letterbox mailboxes. So there is an opportunity to still provide public art within sites of this nature and this scale and size. And we have had other properties, for example, in the South Perth Activity Centre plan area, where we had single residential provide public art, and that was provided, it was actually around the number of the property and mailbox. So there is still an opportunity to provide public art on developments of this scale.
Could I just clarify that further? So are you saying that the policy position is, because it refers to here, the public realm, are you talking about the public realm within the whole of the CBACA precinct, or are you talking about it in the more intensive street interface or commercial interface? That's one of the areas that I'm looking at in your documentation and your report. It appears to focus on the activity centre locations as opposed to the residential, in this case, interface, low intensity interface.
I don't have the policy in front of me, perhaps if...
Yeah, that is correct. So the application of the policy is more directed towards activity centre areas which this property is located within, acknowledging that across the road, if the development was over there, it may not necessarily apply.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Clarification. In the RAR, where it sort of talks about planning assessment, it makes a comment about the CBACP controlling land use permissibility. Ordinarily, the town planning scheme would do that. But we do know that there are some structure plans that provide that control. Is that the case with this? So there is obviously, it's within the centre zone, but the actual permissibility is controlled through the structure plan.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And the same applies to the normal development requirements. It's the activity plan that controls that rather than the scheme.
That is correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Could I just get you to comment for me on the applicant's question about condition 4.2, which relates to the design of the crossover? Would you be happy to accept the suggestion to amend the wording of the condition and the flaring of the crossover?
Through the chair, if I may, it would very much depend on the wording of the change to the condition. The city does consider that the wording does allow for discussion prior to the submission of a building permit. So whilst it is fairly prescriptive. We still think there is certainly scope for us to discuss this, the location of the crossover with the applicant prior to the submission of the building permit. So it's
So
flexibility.
I guess picking up on the applicant's suggestion, wording could be the northern wing of the vehicle crossing to the site shall be redesigned to the city's satisfaction to flare at the point it connects to the street to ensure sufficient space is provided for vehicles to safely enter and exit the site whilst maintaining a setback of 500 mils to the light pole. That's very specific, though, in terms of outcome to address the issue. Are you saying that there is enough flexibility for that option to occur without being too prescriptive?
Yes, through the chair, because the condition, we have the wording to prove to the satisfaction of the City of South Perth, we still feel that whilst we are fairly specific in what we're trying to achieve, notwithstanding that being specific, I can't say the word, being specific, there is still scope for a change in design that is mutually acceptable to both the applicant and the city.
Okay. Thank you for that.
There was one further question, sorry. Back to the activity plan. Can you just briefly outline what the objectives or outcomes of the plan are? Because I don't think there was a reference in the RAR.
Yes, I guess the objective is to try and generate high density development close to the Canning Bridge train station. So it covers the 800 metres from the train station, and the intent is to have the highest density closest to the train station as you move away from the train station, transitioning to lower density to interface them with those areas which this is on the edge of the structure plan, which remain residential low density.
So the plan recognises as you move further away, the lower density is appropriate.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. That. All right. Unless there are any further questions for Anna, we might move to the report. We have a report in front of us recommending approval of the proposal subject to conditions. Does any member wish to move that recommendation? Thank you, Member Lafati. Anyone wish to second? You have the floor.
From my perspective, this proposal is consistent with the established planning framework, the centre zone designation, and as already indicated, the Canning Bridge Activity Centre plan. It also meets the SPP 7 principles and with only some minor modifications. Material and selection and finishes contribute, in my view, to a contemporary streetscape appearance. The development is a low intensity. It's designed to reflect the character and scale of the surrounding streets, making note that the adjoining sites opposite this subject site are outside of the precinct, and therefore there's been a very careful consideration and respective integration at a streetscape. The variations both to the setbacks at the side of the street, I believe, have balanced the design layout, and they reflect the configuration and the angle of the site. The height and scale form also help achieve the intended outcomes in relation to this, as well as integration. Traffic generation, from my perspective, is both compatible and acceptable within the existing road network, with each dwelling providing sufficient on-site parking. I note there are some minor adjustments relating to solar access and daytime provisions to be resolved, as well as the driveway configuration through conditions. At this juncture, I would like to move an amendment. My amendment 1 is to delete condition 11. Second, I'll speak to that. Would you speak to it now?
No, I'll seek a second. Does anyone wish to second?
Sorry, just looking at what condition 11 is.
Relating to the
Public
requirement for public art. A seconder for that?
Thank you. I'll speak to this. I have given significant careful consideration to this particular matter. Thank everyone for their comments. From my perspective, this site, as already indicated, is on the edge of the precinct boundary. Its design and configuration of this proposal emulates similar low residential proposals form and scale, and therefore I think it has a very appropriate interface with the lower level residential, and it's a very considered interface. In this particular instance, it's not just scale of proposal, it's also location and context of this site. So my judgment is specific of this design in this location on the edge of the precinct, doesn't reflect a broader consideration of this provision overall. I note the commentary around the intention of public art in terms of activation within the more intensive town centre or the more intensive areas, and therefore from my consideration I am satisfied. In this particular instance it is appropriate to delete the the provision of public art, as I've already indicated, and it's very, very specific to, I've already indicated, its location and its design, which incorporates a low-rise development.
Thank you. Member Arias, do you?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I agree that the comments made, I think when applying local planning policy, it should always be in the context of the scale and the location of particular development. It is on the fringe of this area, and I'm concerned that the application simply applies unnecessary costs to a development in a climate where perhaps we need to scrutinise these sort of requirements very carefully. So on that basis, I'd support the deletion of the condition.
Thank you. I'll speak very briefly to the amendment. I entirely understand why the city is recommending the condition for the sake of consistency, because where does the city draw the line? Otherwise, is it 2 group dwellings? Is it 3? Is it 5? The policy doesn't give them the ability to, it's not, I guess, fine-tuned enough, and nor should a policy be, to deal with a case-by-case basis. So I think the city has done the right thing by recommending the condition. So this is not a criticism of them doing that. I'm happy to support the amendment, however, because it is our role to decide whether or not we want to go with that condition or not. In this case, for the reasons mentioned, and particularly, it's only $23,000, and I understand that that could happily be allocated towards some refinement at the boundary, whether it's a post box or a gate. That just makes the proposal more appealing from the street. But for a small development, it is a financial impost that could probably be better used elsewhere. So I'm happy to support in this case. So yeah, handing back then to the mover to close. Do you wish?
My only comment is to add that the deletion of public art condition in this particular instance is not considered to impact the provision of achieving public realm activation throughout the broader precinct area.
Thank you. Let's put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Slab.
I have no further comments to make on this proposal.
Thank you, Member.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm happy to support the motion to approve. I think in terms of the planning framework, group dwelling development in this location meets the requirements of the local planning scheme. And as we've heard from the city's officers, that it's also consistent with the Canning Bridge Activity Centre plan, which dictates uses. In terms of the context of the site, I think this scale of development seems to be appropriate with development that's occurring within the area. Noting that the development's been assessed against SBP 7, design of built environment, and achieves good design outcomes, which is supported by the city's officers. I note that some variation to the development requirements, but then these are addressed in the RAR and supported by the city's officers. So on that basis, I'm prepared to support the motion to approve.
Thank you. I too am happy to support. It's an application for high quality residential accommodation, noting that group dwellings are preferred use for the site And I think the proposal fits very comfortably within the parameters set by the activity centre plan and acts as a good transition between the higher density in the activity centre and the adjoining residential R20 zone. Pleased to see that the plans were amended to respond to feedback from the city's design review panel, and that the panel chair has concluded that the proposal meets the design principles of SBP 7.0. And that the proposal has also been assessed against the R codes as part of the requirement of the activity centre plan. I think that where discretion has been sought against requirements of the activity centre plan and the codes, I think the city's done a thorough job as a ways of justifying the merits of exercising discretion against the design elements in their RAR, and I agree with their assessment. So thank you for that. As mover of the substantive, would you like to close? Further, let's put the substantive motion to vote. All those in favour? With that, we will move on to item 4, our DAP application for today. Lot 4, number 3, Lyle Street, number 56, Melville Parade, South Perth, 27-storey mixed development. Amendment to development approval extension of time, DAP number 16/00989. We have one presenter on this item today. We have Dan Lees from Element Advisory. Dan knows the drill, so I won't go through it in detail. Dan, after your 3 minutes, we will ask questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Development Assessment Panel members. Thank you for this opportunity to speak briefly in support of the officer recommendation for approval for the additional 1 year to the substantial commencement period of this major residential development in South Perth. This project was originally approved by this panel in February 2020, with the City of South Perth acknowledging at that time that it was broadly consistent with the then future vision of the activity centre for the South Perth Peninsula. Since 2020, we've seen numerous architecturally designed significant residential towers have been approved, and some of these have since been completed. Others are under construction across the peninsula. Something that has remained constant is this vision for the South Perth Peninsula to provide a density of residential apartments and a mix of land uses in a tower format. The fitting of this activity centre across the Swan River at City Centre. Whilst there has been some change to the planning framework, we would say it has not been substantial. The framework still calls for slender buildings with a maximum 27-storey building height on this site, as this project comprises. This project is still capable of, we say, would likely receive planning approval now if it were a fresh application, particularly noting that the city's design review at the time found that this project achieved exemplary design and could even be used as a benchmark with which to measure other developments against. Since February 2020, there have been a number of external factors that have affected not just this project, but the industry as a whole. Firstly, with COVID-19 and then the escalation of construction costs and the shortage of trades that have detrimentally impacted the ability to advance this project and others from planning approval through to construction. This has not been through lack of trying for this project. The original developer and landowner entities undertook marketing of the project. They established a display suite on site prior to entering into financial receivership in 2024. Since our client obtained control of the site, they have sought and obtained development approval from the city directly in October last year. This was for some minor amendments to the approval. Are expending time and finances with the project architect and the technical consultant team to get the project to that point. The project is now in a state of readiness to obtain a forward works building permit, and subject to your approval here today for 1 year, this would then provide sufficient time and contingency to undertake these forward works for the piling and the ground floor slab construction, so as to lock in substantial commencement prior to February next year. Whilst this project received the COVID-19 2-year automatic extension, as noted in the city's report, this is the first applicant extension of time request. Your approval here today would provide a substantial commencement period of 7 years in total, which is not uncommon for projects of this scale and in this post-COVID-19 era. It's also considered appropriate in the circumstances with the original developer and landowner entities entering into receivership. So in closing, the city's report concludes that the development still broadly aligns with the intended nature and built form envisaged for the South Perth Activity Centre, and the city has come to the conclusion that it warrants approval. So respectfully, your approval today is requested for a one-year extension to the substantial commencement period. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Members, are there any questions of this presenter?
No.
See, one of the considerations in granting an extension is what has happened to, what has the applicant done to implement the project since the approval. Can you sort of clarify that?
Yeah, so the original landowner and original development entity has marketed the site, have produced sales collateral. They've established a sales office on the property, and we're actively marketing the property. I think as a COVID-19 being one of the big factors, but that entity has gone into financial receivership. Since that point in time, our client has quite an interest in the site and is looking to implement that approval. So since their interest in the site, they've sought and obtained development approval for minor amendments to the approval, which has resulted in removal of one of the basement levels to make this a more efficient and cost-effective build. So I suppose it's just worth bearing in mind that our client today has undertaken activities, and the original landowner and developer also undertook activities to implement the approval up to the point that they got to before they went to financial receivership.
All right, we still have our city officers with us. Do we have any questions of the officers?
No.
Okay, let's move straight to the report. Do I have a mover? Member Santi, seconder.
From my perspective, the time extension request is appropriate for consideration under Regulation 17. The proposal does not alter the development details, form, scale and use mix, and whilst there are some changes to the planning framework, the project's design excellence remains as had been previously considered and supported, and it still meets the general site objectives for the particular location. I note the comments provided in relation to the delays relating to unforeseen issues and circumstances, including things such as the trades, obtaining trades, project team, funding, as well as some design changes that have been incorporated into it. The one-year extension is considered, from my perspective, very minor and very reasonable, and therefore I'm supportive of it.
Member Arias?
Thank you. Thank you, presiding member. I'm happy to support the recommendation to approve. Probably fair to say that I had some reservations given my comment about implementation of the approval, but on balance, based on the recommendation in the RAR and the fact that the RAR concludes that the current development generally aligns with the planning framework, I'm prepared to support it. And I think a significant consideration is the fact that the DRP previously determined that the development or the design had design excellence, and that is still the case. So on that basis, I'm happy to support what is a minor extension of 1 year.
Thank you. I'm not going to rehash anything that's already been said, just to note that interesting that the considerations and decisions previously made by the SAT on such matters, and you've outlined that in the city's report. I'm satisfied that the proposal aligns with those considerations, so happy to support. With that, I will move back to the mover. Anything you wish to add?
No.
No. Let's put that to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving to item 5, section 31, stat reconsiderations. There are none. City of South Perth today. Part D, other business, SAT applications, Supreme Court appeals. All SAT applications for SAPs are listed on the website. With that, I close at 11:09 a.m. Everyone for their attendance and participation, and to the Secretariat for dealing with some difficult technical issues out of their control this morning in a very calm way, I must say. So calm, outwardly calm. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.